At 11:42 p.m., Emily Carter sent a message that would define everything that followed. If I don't come back tonight, don't believe what they tell you. And then she disappeared from trace of the world. No one heard her scream. No emergency call was ever placed. No security camera captured what happened next. Only silence, where a life used to exist. Emily was 23 years old. She lived in Cedar Ridge, Oregon, a small town surrounded by winding roads, dense, and a kind of quiet that most people found comforting. But there's a difference between peaceful silence and unnatural silence. And those who lived closest to Black Hollow Forest knew that difference too well. Emily was not someone who stood out. She wasn't rebellious. She wasn't unpredictable. She wasn't the type of person people expected to vanish. She worked as a nursing assistant at Cedar Ridge Medical Center. Her life followed strict patterns: wake up early, work her shift, return home, repeat. Friends described her as reliable to a fault. She always replied to messages, always showed up on time, always followed routine. Which is why what happened on October 14th didn't make sense to anyone who knew her. That day began any other. Emily, her shift at the clinic. Nothing unusual was reported in the morning. No arguments, no distress, no sudden behavior changes. But around 7:18 p.m., something shifted. She left work earlier than expected. Her supervisor later. She seemed slightly distracted. Not panicked, not emotional, just distant. At 8:00 p.m., she sent a message to her roommate. I'm going for a walk. Need air. I'll be back later. That message would later be examined hundreds of times by investigators. It sounded normal. Too normal. Almost rehearsed. At 9:12 p.m., her phone connected to a cell tower near the edge of Cedar Ridge, close to the entrance of Black Hollow Forest. A location locals avoided without ever fully explaining why. Officially, there was nothing wrong with it. Unofficially, people just didn't go there alone at night. At 9:41 p.m., Emily's phone pinged one final time. It stopped. No movement, no signal, no activity, as if the device itself had been switched off or removed from the world entirely. The next morning, Emily did not return home. At first, nobody panicked. Her roommate assumed she had stayed over at a friend's place. Her workplace assumed she had called in sick. But by noon, the pattern broke. Her car was still parked outside the apartment building, locked, undisturbed, intact. Inside her apartment, investigators arrived later that day. What they found immediately raised questions. Her wallet was on the table. Her keys were in their usual spot near the door. Her phone charger was plugged in. Everything looked normal, except for one detail. Her shoes were missing. One pair. Her boots. That detail changed the direction of the entire case. Because Carter did not hike. She never had. She didn't own outdoor gear. She didn't go on trails. She didn't participate in camping or trekking. So, would she own hiking boots? And more importantly, why were they gone? Detectives began tracing her recent activity. A purchase record revealed something unexpected. The boots had been bought exactly 7 days before she disappeared. Cash transaction. No online record. No digital trace, no bank activity, just a physical purchase at a sporting goods store 2 towns away. No one could explain it. Not her roommate, not her friends, not her co-workers. It was as if Emily had prepared for something without telling anyone, and that realization made the case more complicated because it suggests intent, and intent planning. Search efforts began within hours. Black Hollow Forest became the focal point of the investigation. Search teams were deployed, drones under the canopy. Dogs were brought in. Volunteers joined the search grid. But almost immediately, something felt wrong. GPS devices began malfunctioning inside specific zones of the forest. Coordinates would drift. Signals would drop. Devices would restart unexpectedly. Experienced search personnel described it as disorienting, not dangerous, just wrong. And then the dogs. Search dogs, trained to locate missing persons, refused to enter certain areas. They would approach a boundary, stop, and refuse to move forward. Handlers tried different routes, different commands, different scents. None worked. The dogs, they would not cross. By the third day, search teams narrowed their focus. A 1.7-mile radius around Emily's last known phone signal, but the terrain inside Black Hollow Forest was dense. Thick, blocked visibility. Uneven ground slowed movement, and the deeper they went, the more coordination broke down. Radio communication became unreliable. Markers came inconsistent, and time itself felt slower to the teams inside the forest. Locals and sharing stories, not official statements, not reports, just quiet warnings passed between people who had lived there long enough to notice patterns. Some said they had seen lights in the forest at night. Not headlights, not flashlights, just soft, floating illumination between the trees. Others claimed they heard footsteps without any visible source, and a few said something even stranger, that people entered certain areas of Black Hollow Forest, sometimes returned confused about how much time had passed. Authorities dismissed these accounts, but search teams couldn't fully ignore them because the environment itself didn't behave normally. Then, a breakthrough occurred. A cloud backup from Emily's phone was recovered. Among corrupted data, investigators found a short audio file, 12 seconds long, damaged but salvageable. Forensic audio specialists enhanced it. What emerged changed the tone of the investigation. Emily's voice, steady, low. "I told you I didn't want to come here." Rust followed, breathing. Then a second voice, unclear, not identifiable. Again. "Please don't." Then a sharp cut. Silence followed one final sound. Footstep, right into the microphone, and then nothing. No sound, no movement, no background noise, just digital emptiness. Search operations intensified after this discovery. The perimeter expanded. Additional teams brought in, but Black Hollow Forest did not give answers easily. Every seemed to fade. Every direction looped back incorrectly and slowed. On the sixth day, a truck driver came forward. He reported something he had seen the night Emily disappeared. A woman walking alone toward the forest road, followed by a dark SUV with no headlights. He did not report it immediately. He assumed it was nothing unusual, just another late-night sighting near a rural road. But when investigators compared timestamps, the sighting aligned with Emily's final phone activity within minutes, which meant whatever happened in that narrow window of time. Then, Emily's search history recovered. Backups. 9 to 12 p.m. Can someone track me through my phone? 9:18 p.m. How to stop location sharing without alert. 9:26 p.m. Directions to Black Hollow Forest. No messages to unknown contacts. No calls. No social media interactions explaining the visit. Nothing. And then, the final message. 11:42 p.m. Sent to her closest friend. If I don't come back tonight, don't believe what they tell you. The message was deleted shortly after, but recovered through notification logs. Forensics confirmed it was manually typed, not automated, scheduled, intentional, and that the official timeline began to fracture, because nothing about Emily Carter suggested she would go into Black Hollow Forest alone at night. Yet she did, and came back. The search intensified after audio discovery. Authorities expanded the perimeter deeper into Black Hollow Forest. New teams arrived from neighboring counties. Thermal scanned the canopy from above, and for a brief moment it felt like answers were close. But the forest did not cooperate. In fact, it resisted. GPS devices continued malfunctioning inside the same invisible boundary. Coordinates would jump several meters without explanation. Search paths that were clearly marked on maps did not align on the ground, and the deeper teams went, the more disoriented they became. One search volunteer later described it as, "It felt like walking through a place that didn't want to be mapped." But the investigation pushed forward, because at the center of it all was one question. Where did Emily Carter go after 9 to 41 p.m.? Then, on the 11th day, something changed. A team searching near a dense cluster of pine trees found something unexpected. At the base of a large tree, partially covered in leaves, were a pair of hiking boots. Hiking boots. They were placed neatly, not scattered, not damaged, dragged, placed, facing outward, toward the edge of the forest, as if someone had positioned them deliberately. The discovery immediately halted search activity in that sector, because it didn't look like evidence of struggle. It looked like intention. Someone had time. Someone had control. Someone had been long enough to arrange it. But still no body, no blood, no clothing, no trace of movement beyond that point. Just silence and disturbed soil slowly being reclaimed by nature. Investigators faced three main theories. The first theory was voluntary disappearance, but Emily's financial records showed no withdrawals after her disappearance, no travel bookings, no digital activity suggesting relocation, and no evidence she planned to leave her life behind. The second theory was abduction, but there were no signs of struggle, no physical evidence at entry points, no witnesses reporting forced movement. No forensic trace of a second person in confirmed locations. And the third theory was the most complicated. A planned meeting, gone wrong. But there was no verified contact in her phone records. No calls, no messages, no unknown numbers. Nothing that confirmed she had arranged to meet anyone that night. And so the case entered its most unsettling phase. Not what was found, but of what wasn't. No explanation fit cleanly. No narrative held together completely. And every lead seemed dissolve under scrutiny. Then came another detail from Emily's phone. Recovered fragmented data showed repeated background activity. At 9:12 p.m., she searched, "Can someone track me?" through my phone. At 9:18 p.m., she searched, "How to stop location sharing without alert." At 9:26 p.m., she opened directions to Black Hollow Forest. But after that, the data stops behaving normally, as if something interrupted her footprint entirely. No app usage, no going messages, no location pings beyond the final tower connection. It was as if she had stepped into a zone where her device no longer functioned normally, or had removed from it entirely. On the same day, another witness came forward. A woman living near Route 9 reported seeing headlights near the forest entrance. But what stood out was not the headlights. It was the absence of them. She described a dark SUV parked along the roadside. Engine off. Soft. Movement. And a figure nearby. She could not confirm identity, only that someone was there, watching the road. When investigators cross-checked timing, it aligned again with Emily's last known movement. Minutes, meaning the window of time between 9:30 p.m. and 10 p.m. was critical, and still, no direct link to another person existed in Emily's digital life. No suspicious contacts, no unknown profiles, no hidden communication trail, just a gap that could not be filled with evidence. Theory. As days turned into weeks, public attention began to fade. Search teams gradually reduced operations. Media slowed, and the forest returned to its normal silence. But investigators stayed focused on one final possibility, that something happened in the forest itself that had not yet been discovered. On the final organized search sweep, a small discovery was made. Near the same tree where the boots were found, investigators noticed something unusual in the soil. A patch of ground appeared slightly disturbed, not fresh, not obvious, but different from the surrounding forest floor. Ground-penetrating scans, no buried objects, but the pattern, disturbance, suggested movement. Something had been there, something been removed, or something had never been visible in the first place. That discovery never led to a definitive answer, and it never produced further evidence. It only deepened the uncertainty. Eventually, the official search was suspended. Black Hollow Forest was declared within operational limits, but fully understood. Emily Carter was officially classified as missing, not presumed dead, not confirmed alive, just missing, and the case in cold status. Months passed, then years. No sightings, no financial activity. No digital footprint restoration. No evidence emergence. Nothing. And yet, one detail remained in the official report that investigators never fully removed. The audio file, 12 seconds long, still unexplainable, partially corrupted, still containing that final footstep right next to the microphone, as if whoever was there was standing close enough to be recorded, but never seen. Today, Emily Carter's case remains open in theory, but in practice, her apartment was eventually cleared, her belongings archived, her name placed into missing persons records without resolution, and Black Hollow Forest remains unchanged, unspoken about, but never forgotten by those who searched it, because the hardest part of the case was never the disappearance itself. It was the absence of a conclusion, no final answer, no confirmed event, no recovered truth, only fragments. A message at 11:42 p.m., a phone that went silent at 9:41 p.m., boots placed carefully at the edge of the forest, and a question that still has no answer. What happened to Emily Carter after she stepped into Black Hollow Forest? Because in cases like this, the silence is not empty, it is unresolved. And sometimes, unresolved is worse.